Mindset. So as you can see, I'm here from the NatWest team. So we have an entrepreneurship division in the bank, and I've been working as part of that team for about the last 3 years. And I'll just explain a wee bit more about my background in just a second as we move through the slides. I'm just going to click on to the next slide and give you a little bit of a background on my experience thus far. So I've been working as part of entrepreneurship and within the NatWest Bank, previously Royal Bank of Scotland up in Glasgow, now based out of London, in Bishopsgate, and my role within the entrepreneurship team was working directly with entrepreneurs one-on-one, so individuals that want to start a business with a view to generating profit. And the role that I played within that position was really just working with those entrepreneurs to understand, from a business coach perspective, what are the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis that stop them from being able to achieve success in their business. So I've been doing that role previously for about 1.5 years, and then moved into the entrepreneurship education team, working latterly with schools across the UK, so schools and colleges, much like yourselves, taking a lot of the stuff that we've learned from developing programmes with our entrepreneurs who come in and work out of our co-working spaces across the UK, and taking that and condensing that into workshop material that we can bring into schools and colleges so that you can understand a bit more about what does it mean to be an entrepreneur. What does it take to become a successful entrepreneur? And then more importantly, if you're not sitting right now thinking, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to start my own business, how can you learn from some of the key traits and behaviours that entrepreneurs demonstrate on a day-to-day basis and translate that into making yourself really employable for the future world of work? So that's ultimately the goal of this programme and why it exists. I'm also an entrepreneur myself, so I've got a social enterprise that I own in the East End of Glasgow, helping young individuals into dance performing education, so taking them through dance qualifications all the way up to teacher level, and then if they are looking to maybe start their own dance school, then we help them facilitate that as well. It's all completely free of charge, with a view and ambition to giving dance access to everyone who wants to participate within that space. So a bit of experience on both sides of the fence, both working as an entrepreneur myself and also working directly with really successful entrepreneurs over the last 3-4 years, helping them grow and understand how to change their business model so that it can be really successful. So hopefully we'll impart some of that experience on you today and give you a bit of an idea specifically around what it means in terms of adopting an entrepreneurial mindset. So you might have heard that term quite a few times. You might have done a little bit of work on it in school, particularly in what we're going to be covering today, which is the topic of growth and fixed mindset. But really the goal of today's session is to try and bring that to life for you and give you an idea of the tools and techniques and ways in which you can start to embed that in the way that you do this moving forward. The first thing, we're going to run through the following. So we're going to be talking a bit about broadly entrepreneurship, so why it's really important and why we as an organisation see it as a kind of core set of skills for the future world of work, regardless of your chosen career path, and explain to you a little bit about what we do as a bank here in terms of helping support entrepreneurs on that journey. We'll be talking to you about what is mindset. So core subject for today. What does mindset actually mean? What does it mean to you? Why is it important? Why should we be practicing developing our mindset and understanding how our mindset impacts us on the decisions that we make? And then we'll be looking at transferability. So what does that mean in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis? How does mindset impact you from the moment you get up in the morning to the moment that you go to bed at night, and then everything in between, all the events that happen throughout the course of that day? How does mindset play a role in the way in which you respond to those situations? And then from there, we'll be running through some top tips. So we'll give you some things that you can take away today. You should all have a little handbook that you can work through as we move through the course of today's presentation. And then there's a little action plan at the back of it. So we want to make it action-based learning. So we're going to give you some time as well to complete some key actions that you want to use to take forward to start to embed what we call a growth mindset approach to learning. So that's really what the session ahead looks like today. We're going to try and make it as interactive and as fun as possible. We've got loads of breakout exercises as well. And as Bronwyn said, if you've got any questions as I move through some of the content, feel free to pop it into the chat function. At the end of the session today, we'll have a chance to do some Q&A. So if there's anything that maybe you don't necessarily want to come off camera and speak about, all you can do is just pop it into the chat function, and then Bronwyn can relay that when we have our little end section on questions and answers. And hopefully, if I can, I will add some value to answering those questions for you. So why are we here today? Ultimately, the goal of the session today is to understand what goes on up here in terms of the way that we think. How does that impact the way that we feel? How does that play out in terms of what we end up doing? So all the information that we take in on a day-to-day basis through interactions we have with other people, interactions in terms of subjects we might be asked to undertake, topics that we're covering maybe in school or college or whatever that might be. What impact does the way that we think about all of those situations have on the success that we achieve? How are we using our mindset to the best of our abilities to achieve our end goal, achieve the that we've set for ourselves, or more importantly, we may not be in a position where we currently have that vision in place. And again, that plays into the whole concept of mindset. What work can we do and undertake to really start to define that? So the goal by the end of the session today is hopefully have a deeper dive understanding of what we mean by the topic of mindset, understand specifically around some theory on mindset, which is growth and fixed mindset. And we'll talk about that in more detail in just a sec, and then leave with a couple of tools and techniques that we can take forward to really start to move the dial and create behaviour change that's going to be impactful in terms of adopting a growth mindset approach to learning. As I mentioned, I'm from the Entrepreneurship division in the bank, so we have 12 what we call accelerator hubs across the whole of the UK. What that basically means is we've got 12 co-working spaces where we provide entrepreneurs with access to one-to-one coaches, so my previous role, where they will sit down and work with that business on a monthly basis, understanding what challenges they might be facing, and how we can help connect the dots. So it might be that they want to know more about how to deal with their accounts in their business, might be that they want to understand a little bit more about how to create a marketing plan, sales plan, etc., and so on and so forth. But also, more importantly, it might be that they're facing challenges personally in terms of the way that they're looking at certain situations. And that's where mindset plays a role in it. So within those accelerator hubs, we give them loads of support through one-to-one coaching. We also provide them with workshops similar to the kind of workshop we're going to be running through today, and then access to a pool of mentors as well. All of that's completely fully funded by the bank. And the real kind of goal for us is to help them grow and scale their business. Now, there's a couple of reasons that we do that, a couple of reasons that the bank are really interested in the topic of entrepreneurship. First of those is that from an innovation perspective, it makes sense for us as an organisation to understand, with entrepreneurs being at the very kind of sharp end and at the forefront of new technology and new products and services coming into the marketplace, how do we understand what's on the horizon for our customers? And by partnering with entrepreneurs and giving them that extra support, we can be first to market with some of those products. So from an innovation perspective, it's really, really important to us. From an economic perspective, so financially, it's really important to us because entrepreneurs create job opportunity within the marketplace. They feed the UK economy. So 98% of businesses in the UK at the moment are what we class as small to medium enterprises. So from a kind of financial standpoint, it makes good business sense for us also to be able to support those entrepreneurs on their journey. And lastly, and probably more importantly for everyone listening to the webinar today, is from an education perspective. We know from our own experience and from research that over the last 5 years, there's traits and behaviours that entrepreneurs demonstrate on a regular basis that make them really, really employable, regardless of whether they're off using those skills to start their own business or you're working in a large corporate organisation like NatWest Bank. The kind of skills that entrepreneurs demonstrate are the sorts of skills that we know are going to set you up for success in the future world of work, regardless of what career path you choose. So from our perspective, we see huge value in being able to condense that into module content that can not only teach you as individuals if you're looking to embark on the journey as an entrepreneur, but it's also something that we deliver to all of our 70,000+ staff members across the bank. And we'll see a little bit more about what we mean by those key entrepreneurial skills, traits and behaviours in just a moment as we move through the presentation. But from an education perspective, it's really important to us to be able to get in early on and start embedding some of those skills, so that when you go into the jobs market, you're really well equipped for the kind of questions and the kind of skills and traits and behaviours that employers are going to be looking for when you sit down for that all-important and crucial interview. So one of the other big reasons that we run this programme, the Dream Bigger programme specifically, is because of the lady that you can see here on the screen. Alison Rose, as you can see, her title is CEO at NatWest Group. What that basically means is Alison's the head of our bank, so in charge of the direction of travel for our bank, strategy and all of the things that we do within our communities. In about 2 years ago, Alison was asked by the UK government to conduct some research into understanding what are the barriers to stopping entrepreneurs succeed and grow and scale their businesses in the UK, and specifically with a lens around female entrepreneurship. What are the things that stop females from being able to get that business off the ground and really be successful in their chosen field? And a couple of things came to the forefront. So things like relevant role models, so people to look up to in positions of authority. Alison herself is a key role model within the female entrepreneurial space. She's the first female CEO of one of the big 4 banks ever in the UK, and is a real champion for trying to encourage more females into positions of leadership and also into positions of running their own businesses and scaling that. One of the other big things that came out of the back of the report is the stat that you can see here on the screen, which is 1 in 3 entrepreneurs in the UK are currently female. So Alison set out the report, did all the research, and realised that there was some work to be done in terms of us really being able to start to move the dial on that. And one of those big ambitions was to create a programme that would give entrepreneurship education into schools and colleges across the UK, so that if you are sitting with a passion or an idea to start a business, that we can start to activate that journey and give you a sense of where to go next in terms of pursuing that ambition. So that is exactly why we're here today as well. We're also here kind of to promote to you the opportunity that exists within the space of entrepreneurship. It might be that you've not decided what you want to do yet with your career, and starting a business might be a very valid option for you. And it's something that's particularly over the last year that we've seen a huge increase in terms of working from home and individuals looking to think outside the box about future employability and different jobs that they can do in different roles that they can occupy. So one of the big reasons that the programme exists is because of what we call the Rose Review report that was conducted by our CEO, Alison Rose. This is what the future skills look like. So the goal really of the programme is to start to hone in on these key top skills. We run a series of different webinars. Today's session is all going to be around what you can see here at the top, which is mindset. And this is what we class as our key entrepreneurial skills for the future world of work. Entrepreneurs do this stuff really, really well, and they've honed this over years and years of practice. They adopt the right type of mindset. They're very good at communicating their business, of pitching. They often will set themselves a clear vision for where they want to be in the future. So they always look about 5 years ahead. They've got creativity, in terms of thinking outside the box about how to solve customer problems. They're very resilient. We're going to talk a lot about that as we move through this mindset session. They're curious. They're always looking at how they can do things differently and how they can continuously improve. Great critical thinkers, always trying to solve complex problems. They're very good at reflecting on what's gone wrong. And again, that'll be another key topic that we'll be covering as we move through this mindset session today as well. And all of that in turn leads to broad self-awareness. So self-awareness, really what we're speaking about is your ability to understand your emotional intelligence, how you interact with others, and the way in which you impact the environment around you. But this is ultimately what we're going to be talking about today, is mindset, the top one that you can see at the top of our future skills list. And the goal really is to kind of get us start thinking about what our mindset means to us. So to get us started on that journey, I'm going to introduce you to a really successful entrepreneur from our London hub. Jessica Blackler owns Jecca Black. It's a makeup brand for non-binary or non-gender makeup brand that she started when she was about 19 years of age, and has now scaled that business and is selling across companies like Walmart in the US, Next in the UK, Selfridges, to name but a few. And she's going to join us just now just to give us a little bit of an overview as to how important mindset was in terms of her success and being able to set that business up, and give you a few kind of tips on what she thinks mindset means and why that's allowed her to achieve the success that she has. So we're going to watch this short video, and then we're going to do some exercise and get you to answer some questions after we've finished that content.
Hey everyone, I'm Jess and I'm the founder of Jecca Black. So Jecca Black is a gender-free makeup brand that I started by offering makeup lessons to trans women. I was inspired by my clients to create a brand that overlooks gender and concentrates on individuality. So we launched the products at the end of 2018, and since then we are stocked in many different retailers, including Next and Walmart in the US, and we are also part of L'Oreal Innovation. So I know that you're going to be talking about mindset today, and I just wanted to say a few things of why I think mindset's really important. For me, I think mindset's important because it determines on how you respond to everything in day-to-day life, from whether that be challenges, setbacks, or just feedback. And having that right mindset determines on your performance and your growth. And for me, if I hadn't had the right mindset as an entrepreneur, I wouldn't have been able to achieve what I have. So making sure you have that right mindset is really, really important and the key success of being successful.
So as you heard from Jess there, Jess is kind of key advocate of mindset. And I know from working out at the London Hub and working specifically with Jess, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about at the tail end of this, so the top tips and recommendations about how to embed a growth mindset approach to learning, Jess does really, really well and really embraces it. And that's been one of the key reasons that she's been as successful so young and so early on in her career and has been able to grow her business exponentially. So what we're going to talk about now is the topic of growth and fixed mindset. So you may have heard this term before. It might be something that your school already do a little bit of work on. And if so, then that's great. You'll have a better understanding. We'll do a little bit of a deeper dive into what it all means. But ultimately, growth and fixed mindset is the concept that you can look at challenges, setbacks, failures, mistakes, etc. through two different lenses. So you can view the world either from a growth mindset perspective, so you view experiences that happen, so events that happen throughout the course of your day. It might be that you don't get the desired exam results that you were trying to achieve. It might be that you make a mistake on a particular project you're working on. And if you're looking at that through a growth mindset perspective, you see all of that as opportunity. So you view mistakes, feedback, challenges, failure as a chance to grow and develop. You look at that as a, how do I do it differently next time, and how do I change the way in which I feel about that mistake so that I can become incrementally better at that subject. Obviously, the flip side of that is a fixed mindset. And from a fixed mindset, what we're basically saying is that we see challenges, mistakes, failure as things to be frightened of and to try and avoid. And as a result, what we do is we then ultimately impede our growth. We impede our ability to learn and grow and develop. Hence the reason for growth is the word for growth mindset approach. And then fixed mindset, so you're fixed in a position. You don't want to move forward because actually you view stepping out your comfort zone as a bad thing. You want to stay put. You view making a mistake as a bad thing, so you try and avoid it. And as a result, you stop yourself from really embracing that learning journey. To add a wee bit more colour to this, we're going to play a short video in a few moments just to really bring it to life and give you a bit of a deeper dive on this. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about the subject of growth and fixed mindset, Carol Dweck is the psychology professor from Stanford University who created and coined the terms growth and fixed mindset. And there's a whole body of research that kind of articulates why this has an impact on the way in which you work and how you perceive your kind of learning patterns and the words and language that you use with yourself. And at the end of the session today, I'll also give you a really great way you can go and view, and that will give you loads of little kind of breakout exercises and things that you can practice on a day-to-day basis to really start to bring this to life. To get us started thinking about what it means for us, I want you to refer to your workbook. It's on page 5 of your handbook, and within there's 3 key questions we'd like you to answer just now. So question number 1 we want you to answer is, what 3 words do you currently associate with mindset? So when we think about mindset, what 3 words come to mind? So we'll give you a couple of minutes to complete this exercise. And what I'd like you to do is if you could pop some of your answers into the chat function and maybe get Bronwyn to share some of them with us as we move through each of the questions. Next question we want you to answer is, how do you think mindset impacts an entrepreneur? So you've heard a little bit about how that impacted Jason and what she views as important in terms of mindset for being a successful entrepreneur. How do you think mindset impacts an entrepreneur? Next question we want you to answer is number 3, which is, how do you think mindset impacts you? So I'll give you a few minutes to complete the exercise. If you want to start when you've completed, if you want to start once you're finished popping some answers into the question box, so just put 1 and then what your answer is, 2 answer, and then 3 answer, and then we'll get some examples of that as we move through the exercise. So a few minutes just to complete. So I'll give you a couple more minutes, so about 2 more minutes just to tie off the answers. Don't worry if you've not got loads of information in there. It's just to get some thoughts and views around what you think the answers to each of these questions might be. Okay, so Bronwyn, do we know if we've got any? I can't see, unfortunately, the chat function. Do you know if we've got any answers to question number 1 coming through?
Yeah, we've had a few answers to question number 1, so thank you, everyone. So the ones we've got back are around, one person said mental health, emotion, and focus.
Yeah.
Someone else has said failure, fixed, and growth. Yeah. And we've had another one back saying goals, motivation, and understanding.
Amazing answers, amazing. So all of the above is absolutely bang on. So when we think about mindset, so things like focus, so your mindset impacts your focus, of course. If we think about the way that we think about a particular subject, so I was on a session earlier today, and all of the guys had algebra straight after I was going to be doing my mindset session with them, and the general consensus was, oh no, God, we have to go and do an hour of algebra. And again, if we think about mindset and the way that we think about those situations, how we perceive certain subjects or topics, so for example, algebra, has an impact on our motivation when we get into those subjects. So for example, if I'm going into a subject thinking, oh my God, I'm terrible at algebra, I don't like it, I don't enjoy it, and I'm really not looking forward to it, how do you think I'm going to perform in that subject when I go into the class? Likelihood is I'm probably not going to be very motivated. Likelihood is I'm probably going to shy away from the hardest pieces of work that I have to do throughout the course of that session. And as a result, I'm probably not going to get the output that I'm really looking for. All of that is mindset. So my focus is impacted because of the way that I've set myself up before I go into that session. So when we think about, I heard some words there like focus, and we heard about goals, etc. When the way that we talk to ourselves and the information we give ourselves has a huge impact on what output we create, so how we then approach that subject and what that means in terms of us being able to be successful in that subject. So focus is a really great one. When we also hear words like resilience, so your ability to adapt to change, confidence as well, so that kind of feeds into the mental health piece. Your mindset plays a huge role, and I'm going to go into this in a bit more detail when we talk about negative thought patterns as we move through the presentation. But what we say to ourselves on a regular basis has a huge impact on our confidence, on our motivation, on how excited or how scared we feel about a particular subject or situation. So all of this is really all impacted by our mindset, the mindset that we adopt in any given situation. Motivation, determination, goals, all of this stuff, resilience, etc. All of this comes into play when we think about the topic of mindset. So really great answers, and good to see that we're all on the same wavelength and heading in the same direction. Question number 2 we have: how do you think mindset impacts an entrepreneur? Bronwyn, what did we get?
So we've not had any responses to question number 2 or 3. We've just got one. This is a really good one, actually. Yeah. If an entrepreneur is scared of failure, they have limited their growth.
110. So this is exactly, so you might be asking, and often we get asked this question all the time. Entrepreneurs come into our accelerator hubs, and the first topic we cover before they even start sitting down and talking about their business model, their price points, their sales plans, their marketing plan is mindset. Some entrepreneurs immediately greet us and go, why are we talking about mindset? Why do we have to sit with you and talk for an hour about mindset? And the answer that you've just given is exactly the reason. If entrepreneurs don't start their journey with the right mindset, if they perceive failure as a bad thing, if they look at failure as something to be frightened of, they're going to limit their ability to be a successful entrepreneur, because the reality is, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to fail. No entrepreneur's journey is linear. They don't start here and say, I'm going to make $1 billion company and go from A straight to B. Very, very rarely does that ever happen. Often it's a journey of iteration, making mistakes, getting it wrong, failing, getting the product completely wrong and starting all over again from scratch. So you have to get comfortable with that concept of failing. Entrepreneurs are dealing with uncertainty all the time. So in order to make them prepared for that journey ahead, they have to start with the right mindset. And that's exactly why mindset is such a crucial component of being a successful entrepreneur. So in answer to question number 2, the simple thing is, how do you think mindset impacts an entrepreneur? And everything that you do, mindset is going to impact them. The way in which they perceive their own abilities, the way in which they perceive the events that happen throughout the course of their journey, the way which they perceive mistakes and failures that happen along that journey, all have an impact on their success and their ability to grow and scale that business. That leads me into question number 3. So how do you think mindset impacts you? Hopefully, I don't think there's any answers to that, Bronwyn, but I'm going to just build on it from the previous 2 questions, which is hopefully you can see from what's been said, when we think about mindset, so words that we with mindset, and we think about how it impacts an entrepreneur, it's really relevant to everybody. So not just entrepreneurs. If you think about your day-to-day lives, and the way I used the example of having to go into a class and do algebra or whatever, you know, some of you might be sitting there thinking, I love algebra. Whatever your nemesis is, whatever topic it is that you don't really enjoy doing, mindset impacts you from the moment you get up in the morning to the minute you go to bed at night. The way that you think about your day ahead, if you get up in the morning and you say to yourself, oh my goodness, I'm really not looking forward to getting into school today, I'm really not excited about my first class, whatever that topic might be, then what do you think you're doing in terms of the way that you're prepping your mind and your mindset for the day ahead? You're probably not going to give it your best shot. If, on the other hand, you're sitting saying to yourself, I'm so excited that I get up today and I can go in and I can learn all of these amazing things that are going to help me grow and develop and get me to the next stage of my development, so that I can get that dream job that I've been chasing, or that dream position that I really want to achieve in the next 4 or 5 years. The effort and energy you're going to put into your work is going to be completely different. So a simple answer to question number 3 is mindset impacts everything that you do. The events that happen throughout the course of your day, you have a choice to react to them. You can either react to them as opportunities to be frightened of them and move away from them, or opportunities to be excited by them and really go for gold and try and achieve as much as you can. And that sounds easier said than done, so you just think differently about it. But it's not that simple. Obviously, if it were that simple, everyone would be uber successful. This is all about how do we implement little strategies so that we can create behaviour change. So that's what we're going to do over the next kind of latter part of this session. We're going to run through tools and techniques and how we can start to embed this approach to learning so that it becomes part of how we do things on a day-to-day basis. Before we do that, I'm going to play you a short video that will just give you a little bit of a deeper dive into the topic of growth and fixed mindset. It'll give you a couple of little strategies that we can use, and then we're going to move into how you can start to build that out for yourself. So let's have a watch of this video, and then we'll do some exercises to follow on from it.
So what is mindset? Mindset is an established set of attitudes held by someone. But what does that mean? Well, your mindset can be described as your philosophy on life. It's how you choose to interpret the world around you, and it's how we think. Your mindset is your frame of mind when it comes to doing something. Your mindset is a collection of thoughts and beliefs that shape what we call your thought habits. And your thought habits affect what you think and how you feel. Your mindset impacts on how you make sense of the world around you and how you make sense of you. It's your attitude, your outlook, your mind, and your conviction. We're starting to understand the power of mindset more and more. It's been used in sports for years, and they use it in business to support entrepreneurs and help business people reach their potential. So why is it important? Why is it that some people just shine in any situation and others just don't, even though they're just as talented? Well, research shows that it's the way they think about their ability that really makes a difference. In other words, it's mindset. So you get 2 different kinds of mindset. There's a fixed mindset, and that is a belief that your character, intelligence, and creative ability are fixed. That means you're not in control. Or There's the belief in a growth mindset, which means you can change and grow if you make the effort, apply yourself to it, and get the right experiences. That means you are in control. So the key difference is the belief that you can grow and change anything about yourself by making an effort. So having a growth mindset can really help you. It's all about owning it when things aren't working, and then being curious enough and willing enough to do something about it. By trying, you learn, and if you keep trying and learning and put effort into it, you can achieve anything. Now, it's important to point out we don't have one or the other. You're not born with a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. It's a state of mind that you adopt depending on how you're feeling about the situation that you're in. So, for example, you have your exams coming up and you're really stressed about your maths exam. You don't feel you studied enough. You don't feel that you're very good at maths. You think you're going to fail. So, adopting a fixed mindset would lead you to think, there's no point in studying anymore. I might as well give up now. I'm going to fail. But a growth mindset would lead you to think, I'm going to keep on studying. I'm going to try my best. And that's all I can do. Can you see the difference? And you can probably guess which one ended up having a better outcome. A good equation to remember this is, you can't change the event, but you can change how you react to it. And that changes the outcome.
So, as we heard from the video, a little bit around event plus reaction equals outcome. But ultimately what we're talking about with growth mindset, and we're going to get you to do a little exercise in just a sec to try and assess your own mindset, but what we're talking about is really another way of thinking about it is beliefs and focus. So I'll give you an example. When I was many years at musical theatre college, I was in a class with a guy from America called Sam, and both of us were having to practice something called pirouettes. So for those of you in the audience that do dance, you'll know what that is. That's basically spins, so turning on the spot. And our goal was to try and do as many pirouettes as we possibly could. And we practice and practice and practice. And myself and Sam would be in the same class, and we'd have to stand up in front of the whole class, practice our double pirouettes, practice our triple pirouettes, etc., and try over and over again to get it right so that we could achieve that double pirouette or perfect triple pirouette. And we'd be practicing, and there was two different responses, so reactions to the event that was happening in front of us. So in one hand, I would be practicing my double pirouette, falling off, and then I get really frustrated and annoyed and embarrassed about it. And as a result, I kind of stopped practicing. I didn't want to practice in front of everyone. I was really embarrassed and I couldn't get it right and I kept making mistakes. So as a result, I kind of took myself away from it, moved to the side of the class, kind of went up to the back of the class and stopped practicing. And Sam, on the other hand, was there and was doing his double pirouettes, falling off, getting straight back up, doing his double pirouette again, falling off, getting straight back up and doing his double pirouette again. Both of us were asked to do the same task, but both of us were looking at it through two different lenses. You can probably guess who was adopting the growth mindset approach to learning and who was adopting the fixed mindset approach. My focus, so if we talk about beliefs and focus, I believed that I wasn't able to get my double pirouette. So therefore my focus and my attention was all on, I was making mistakes, I was getting it wrong, I was embarrassing myself, people could see that I wasn't getting my double pirouette, and I was focused on the outcome of that situation. I was focused on the fact that I wasn't achieving the outcome. What happened was my response to that situation was I decided to just quit. I was like, I'm not doing it now, I'm not doing it in front of people. And as a result, I basically stopped myself in my tracks from being able to learn and grow and develop. Sam, on the other hand, believed that if he kept practicing and he kept pushing and he kept putting in the hard work, that he would eventually get it. And his outcome would be different to mine because his focus was on the process of getting better. So he was focused on the process and I was focused on the outcome. And that was because I believed that I wasn't able to get better and he believed that he could get incrementally better if he kept practicing his double pirouettes. So think about what that means for you. Have you ever been in that situation? Are you in that situation right now with a particular subject? Are you just like, I'm not going to get it, so I'm just going to stop. I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying. Are you sitting in class ever and thinking, I know the answer to the question, but I'm not going to put my hand up because I don't want to put my hand up in case I get it wrong? That's your mindset kicking in and stopping you from being able to embrace that opportunity to learn and grow and develop. So ask yourself, when are you adopting a growth mindset, and what situations have you been in where you're adopting a fixed mindset approach to learning? We're going to give you a couple more minutes now just to try and revisit your own mindset and where you sit currently in terms of adopting a growth mindset approach to learning and a fixed mindset approach. Within your handbooks on page 7, you'll be able to see that there's a little kind of questionnaire. It's called your mindset check-in. And then all we want you to do is score yourself out of 6 for each of these different parts. Just bear in mind that the scoring changes on part B. So on part A, you're scoring yourself from 1 to 6. So circle the option that relates to you. Part B, you're scoring yourself from 6 to 1. So again, scoring yourself from 6 to 1 on the option that is closest to how you would respond to that situation. Once you've completed part A, total up your number. Then part B, total up your number again, and then give yourself a grand total. And then once you've got your grand total, you'll be able to see on the other page what that means. So where are you currently sitting on that scale? So I'll give you a couple of minutes just to complete that questionnaire. And then once we're complete, don't worry, we're not going to be asking anyone to share their scores. This is just an exercise for you to be able to reflect on where you sit at this moment in time. So we'll give you about 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes to complete that exercise. And as always, if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat function. So give you about 1 more minute just to tie this exercise off. As I said, we're not going to be looking for you to share your results. This is just to give you an idea of where you sit on the spectrum at this minute in time, so that you can identify maybe there's some actions that you can take to try and build on it. Then we can use the next part of the session to start to put in some little kind of key actions that we're going to take forward with us. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our next little pieces of content. Don't worry if you've not completely finished that, it's yours to take away with you, so you can revisit that. It's also available on the website that I'm going to talk to you about at the end of today's session. So if you want to go and do a download of that particular questionnaire and do it a couple of times over, we always encourage our entrepreneurs to revisit that on a monthly basis just to see if anything's changed in terms of their scoring. So also another thing that you can use, which you've got a copy of in your booklet, is what you can see on the screen here as well. So another little kind of accountability exercise that we use with our entrepreneurs is the mindset check-in. So this is basically the dream bigger mindset. And ultimately, what we ask our entrepreneurs to do is look at all of these key statements and score themselves out of 10 for each of them. So we've been talking about growth mindset, and we've been talking about a growth mindset approach to learning. So for example, if you were to read statement number 1, so I learn from failure. If you've got a really good, strong growth mindset approach to learning, then you would tick yourself really high on that. So if we were scoring ourselves 1 to 10, if you've got a real growth mindset approach to learning, you would expect yourself to be scoring nearer to the number 10 on this, because learning from failure is a cornerstone of understanding that growth mindset approach to learning. You see failure as a good thing and as an opportunity to understand how to do things differently. I am resilient, so we look down the bottom here as well. We've got things like I embrace challenge. So again, growth mindset approach to learning. You'd be scoring yourself pretty high on the scale of 1 to 10, because actually you see challenges as an opportunity to grow and develop and really stretch yourself. And the same when it comes to the last on that list there, which is I'm resilient. So actually you're resilient because actually you see challenges, you see mistakes, setbacks, failures as chances to be embraced, or chances to embrace new ways of working and developing new strategies and ways of learning and developing in new areas. So all of these things are key statements that we see you can use a kind of as an accountability checker. Our entrepreneurs sometimes will have this up in their offices, they'll put it up on their boards, and they use this and they'll revisit it every fortnight or every month. They'll bring it along to their coaching sessions and they'll say, actually, there've been a couple of things that have been going on over the last few months where I've been really challenged around my resilience, and I'm maybe scoring quite low on that at the moment, and I need to kind of think of a few strategies to build that out. I had a couple of issues around managing my team and motivating the people around me. I'm maybe scoring a bit low on that as well at the moment. I've kind of lost focus on my vision, all of these different things. So it acts as a really good kind of accountability checker and conversation point. Ask yourself each of these questions. Are you learning from failure? Do you have a clear vision at the moment of where you want to get to in the next 5 years? If not, what kind of work do you need to do in the background to start to build that out and push that number up? So score yourself 1 to 10 for each of these key statements. See where you currently sit. Be really honest with yourself. It's a self-reflection tool. It's an exercise that you do on your own, and then you can use that to go, right, okay, these are the areas that I need to start to focus on. These are my top 5 areas that I'm going to start to drill into and figure out ways in which I can create actions so that I can move the dial on this and really start to change how I'm responding to these situations. Next thing that we're going to do now is I'm going to run through some top tips with you. So we will run through some kind of key things, strategies that we use with our entrepreneurs on a regular basis, hopefully give you some food for thought and things that you can do and take away with you to implement yourself so that you can really start to embed that growth mindset approach. First of those is, we saw it in the video, E plus R equals O. So not going to expect you to remember what that means. I'll explain to you, but basically, put simply, a simple way of remembering it is event. So you can't always control what happens around you. The events will happen throughout the course of your day. You'll have interactions with people. You'll be asked to do certain things. That's the event. That's what's happened throughout the course of the day. What you can control, so this is the kind of the event that happens. What you can control is R. So that's your response or your reaction to that situation. How did you respond to any given situation, and what did that do in terms of impacting O, which is outcome? So actually, it's about recognising that you're in the driving seat at all times. Your response has an impact on the outcome. So a simple tool that we use with our entrepreneurs, but which we ask them all to do, and it's something that we do in the bank as well on a daily basis, is basically build into your diary some reflection time. So all you do is set 30 minutes at the end of a day to one side, where maybe at 4:30 in the evening or the kind of late afternoon, 4:30, sit down and look back at everything that happened across the course of that day and ask yourself what situations happened that were really beneficial and positive and constructive and helped you achieve. And those are things that you kind of want to double down on and build. And then what are the things where maybe you adopted a fixed mindset approach, where you maybe asked to do something and you responded badly to it? Did you have an interaction with someone across that day and you didn't really get the outcome you were looking for because you maybe didn't respond effectively to the question that was being asked? That's a really great tool in terms of developing a growth mindset approach, because what it allows you to do is recognise when you're adopting a fixed mindset, and then it gives you that opportunity to correct it going forward. So the next time you're in that situation, how would you do it differently? It's also a really great way of building self-awareness, because what it means is that you can review the reactions of the people around you. So how did they respond to the way in which you dealt with that situation? And maybe how could you do it differently next time? Was it a positive response and therefore you knew you were heading in the right direction, or was it a negative response and maybe you need to think differently about how you approach it next time? So it gives you a chance to build self-awareness and reflect on all of the different things that happen throughout the course of the day. And then that means that what you do is after you've done your reflection piece, you set yourself some key actions you're going to do the following day to correct or to change that behaviour pattern going forward. So 30 minutes, it's all it takes. Start off with a really short 30 minutes a day and sit down and look at what's happened throughout the course of your day. Write down some key things that you've noticed throughout the course of that day that maybe you want to change for the next day going forward. And if you continue to do that every day, what you're incrementally doing is building that growth mindset approach to learning day after day. So actually building that simple 30 minutes in per day has a huge impact long term on the way in which you view certain situations, events and things that happen throughout the course of the day, and ultimately in embedding that growth mindset approach. So E plus R equals O, event plus reaction equals outcome. Another thing that we spoke about was belief. So actually believing that you can learn. It's very easy, and we live in an environment where instinctively as human beings we don't really like being put into situations that we're not completely prepared for, and often we have a kind of an inflated view of whether we're good at a subject or not good at a subject, and often that impedes our ability to learn. So actually so I used the example earlier about algebra, you may not like a particular subject, and the reason deep down subconsciously that you don't like that subject is because you don't feel safe in that subject. You don't feel like you're equipped and understand enough about the subject to be successful in it. So that's actually really playing back into what we're talking about when we talk about beliefs and focus. If you don't believe you're good at the subject and you don't believe you can get better at the subject, the chances are that you're not going to put in very much effort in trying to get better at the subject. If, on the other hand, you are looking at the subject and telling yourself, actually, I'm not good at that subject right now, but if I put in the hard work and I put in the time and the effort and the application, I'm going to gradually get better at it. What happens in that situation is you then start to push and push and push your comfort zone. So where you started off being completely terrified of the subject and avoiding it like the plague, you suddenly don't mind doing it as much. And then gradually you maybe start to enjoy it. And then before you know it, you're in a space where actually you really don't worry about the subject whatsoever. You feel really comfortable with it. And you've got to that point where you've overcome that initial fear stage and that initial hurdle of trying and pushing and putting that effort and application in at the beginning. So believe that you can learn and place effort before talent. Words have power. So we touched on this a little bit in the video about inner negative self-talk and the things that we say to each other. Interesting statistic for you here. So experts estimate that the human brain processes between 70,000 and 80,000 thoughts per day. So imagine if even 10% of that thought process was non-constructive, so it was negative thought pattern. Simple exercise that we ask our entrepreneurs to do here is called the inner critic exercise. So put simply, all you're doing is looking at trying to understand what are those thought processes that are holding you back? What are the things that you reinforce to yourself on a daily basis? We all talk to ourselves. We know that to be a fact. Scientists have already confirmed that that's the case, 60 to 70 or 70 to 80,000 thoughts per day. What are those thought patterns or those things that we reinforce and say to ourselves on a regular basis that impact our confidence, that impact our ability to succeed and whether we go after things or we take risks or we try new subjects out? The idea behind the inner critic exercise is really simple. It's a psychology practice and it's about objective thinking. So basically, draw a picture of what you think your inner critic looks like. So that can be any representation that you wish. And then you're going to give it a name and then basically write the top 10 statements it says to you. So that could be things that public to, you know, I'm not very good at math, I'm not very good at numbers. And then what you want to do is write 10 opposing statements. So that would be evidence to prove that those statements aren't true. So for me, for example, if it was, you're not very good at public speaking, well, the evidence to counteract that would be, well, I've done 3,000 plus presentations over the last 3 years to schools and colleges and entrepreneurs all across the UK. So that would be that offsetting, that little niggly kind of statement that my inner critic makes. Whatever that looks like, so you're, whatever it means to you, what are those 10 top statements that your inner critic says to you? And then what are the 10 statements that would counteract those kind of thought processes? And the idea is that over time, what you eventually start to be able to do is silence that. So every time that thought process jumps into your head, if you get asked to do something and suddenly your inner critic kicks off and starts going into overdrive, then you use those 10 counteracting statements to silence your inner critic. And again, it's a psychological practice that over time works in terms of reducing the fear of those particular situations. So inner critic exercise really useful in terms of controlling that negative thought pattern. We've mentioned this quite a bit, which is continue to step outside your comfort zone. We always say to entrepreneurs, this is where the magic happens. Really, we instinctively as human beings, from way back when we were cavemen and running away from tigers, we're programmed to be fearful of the unknown and things that we don't know. We have a fight or flight response when we suddenly feel threatened, and sometimes that kicks in even when there isn't a threat to be worried about. So really, if we're asked to do something, for example, like stand up and talk in front of a classroom full of people, or stand up and talk at a podium in front of 2,000 people, that fight or flight response from when we were running away from tigers still kicks in, and we suddenly are get flooded with all this adrenaline and start to panic and sweat and worry about the outcome, and we respond to that with fear. Actually, embracing that fear and recognizing that when you are able to move past that and push yourself and stretch yourself and move yourself out your comfort zone, that's where the real magic happens, because actually you start to overcome that fear. So it no longer becomes a fear for you, and it becomes something you become skilled in. So think of ways, what are the things that you really want to upskill in, and what are the things that you're maybe a little bit fearful of at the moment? Rationalize that thought process, and then set yourself some key actions that you can put in place over the coming weeks and months to help you push yourself and push the boundaries of that particular comfort zone. And that really is where you'll start to see some huge benefit in terms of your growth and your development. Next thing is about feedback. So feedback for growth from a growth mindset perspective is crucial. So understanding what those around you think and how you come across in terms of your strengths and weaknesses. We do this all the time in the bank. We have something in the bank called 360 feedback, where we have to go out to colleagues and they give us anonymous feedback on how they believe we respond to certain situations, team building, all of these different things. Also, what strengths, so what are the 3 things that they would say that I'm really great at, and what are the 3 things that they would say I need to work on and need to improve upon. Asking for regular feedback is also a really key tool in building self-awareness. So it's a great way of understanding you have your own perception of how you behave in any given situation, but also the people around you have loads of data and information as well to help inform that. So ask for that. If you, the next time you do a project, the next time you're doing some work and you hand it into a teacher, or you're working with students in your class, ask them, what are the 3 things that I did really, really well here, and what are the 3 things that I could work on and I could build upon and improve upon. And gradually, if you do that over time, again, you'll continue to build your self-awareness and develop how to do things differently, or how to increase the things you're doing really, really well. And then the last of these, so I know that we've gone through quite a bit and we're nearing the end of the session, but the last is basically just enjoy the journey. Enjoy the fact that when you're looking at things from a growth mindset perspective, the whole feeling, motivation, emotional response to that situation feels a whole lot better. The fact of the matter is that you're going to make mistakes along the journey. You're going to get things wrong. You're going to sometimes fail and have to start again. Recognizing that that's part of the process of learning, it's part of the joy and the journey of learning, and recognizing that every time you make a mistake or every time you do fail and have to start again, you're one step closer. You've learned something from that situation, which means that you're one step closer than you were before you started that process. process. So you're gradually and incrementally getting closer to the end outcome that you're looking for. So always reinforce that message. If you're looking at it from a growth mindset perspective, you're always using mistakes, feedback, challenges, failure as a chance to get that little bit closer to achieving that end outcome. So enjoy the journey, relish the failure, and embrace the lessons learned. So I've talked to you quite a bit now. Hopefully I've given you some food for thought in terms of how you can start to take some of this stuff forward with you in developing a growth mindset approach to learning. What we want you to do now is take a couple of minutes at the back of your booklet just to complete some actions that you're going to embed to take forward with you. We want to make them smart, so make sure that you choose a timeline. So choose something really specific that you're going to do. So it might be that very specific SMART goal might be, I'm going to set aside 20 minutes or 30 minutes at the end of every day. I'm going to pop it into my diary at the end of every day to do some reflection. That's a very simple, easy tool that you can do to start reflecting on how you're responding to situations. It has a timeline attached to it. It's very specific, so you can be able to say at the end of that, yep, I've done it, or I've not completed that. And then decide how you'll hold yourself accountable. It might be that you want to share that you're doing that as an exercise with your teachers or with your peers, so people in your class or your family members, so that they can check in and make sure that that progress is happening. That's the reason that we have entrepreneurial coaches in our hubs, so that entrepreneurs have a bit of accountability. So how are you going to emulate or replicate that for yourself? So I'll give you a couple of minutes just to complete, and once you've done that, we're going to do a quick tie off of the session, and then I believe we're handing back over to Bronwyn just to give you a wee bit of a close out, and we'll open up to some questions and answers. Just give you about 2 minutes just to complete. So whilst you are completing your action plan, I'm going to run through a little quick recap. So just some highlights of what we spoke about. So we talked about growth mindset. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of what we mean by growth and fixed mindset. So the two different lenses in which you can approach learning. So growth mindset, you see challenges, mistakes, failure, setbacks as an opportunity to grow and develop. Fixed mindset on the flip side of that is actually you see that as a threat and a fear, and therefore you avoid it. So we always want to try to be leaning towards growth mindset approach to learning. To build on what we'd spoke about a little bit earlier as well, there is a website that you can visit if you're looking to do a little bit of deeper dive into this topic. It's called mindsetworks.com. So it's just mindsetworks, all one word, .com. There's loads of resources on there. There's loads of studies as well about where all of this concept comes from. So where growth and fixed mindset was initially evolved from, and then tips on how you can start to embed that over and above some of the tips that we've given you today. So loads of information on there that will really help you start to embed this as the way that you do things. And then also, lastly, hopefully now you have a little bit of an action plan to get the ball rolling, get this started. Key kind of takeaway for today is remember that this is stuff that you maybe know a little bit about already and stuff that you maybe thought about and kind of get the concept. But really the challenge with this is it isn't actually that easy. It's all about behaviour change. So what can you do to hold yourself accountable to changing those behaviours? If there's things that you're doing at the moment approaching from a fixed mindset perspective, how can you put things in place to ensure that you do it? Very much like if you're trying to stick to a diet plan or you're trying to go to the gym every week, how do you make sure that you do that? How do you keep yourself accountable to those goals and achieving that? It's the same thing. If you're putting in effort to go to the gym 3 times a week or whatever it might be, how do you do the same thing for working on your mind and working on your mindset? What actions can you put in place to give yourself that time to be able to develop in that area? Okay, so Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope it's been informative and exciting and enjoyable and as fun as you thought it was going to be. I'm now just going to open the floor to some Q&A. So if you've got any questions about what we've covered throughout the course of the presentation, please feel free to fire them into the chat function. I'm going to hand over to Bronwyn. If you've got any questions that are coming through, then I'm happy to try and answer them for you just now.
Thanks, Sean. So, yeah, if anyone's got any questions, please do put them in the chat. I know we're overrunning, so I guess we'll give you a couple of minutes to add in any questions and then answer them if they come through.
Yeah. So any questions coming through from anyone, you can ask me anything at all, what I'm having for dinner tonight, where I'm going, what am I looking forward to Christmas, whatever comes to mind. Preferably in reference to growth mindset. So anything coming through, Bronwyn?
We've got someone typing. Oh, right. Okay. They've asked, would you say that university is needed to start out a business? So I guess going to university, is that needed?
Oh, controversial. So I would say the simple and short answer to that question is no. It's not needed, but it depends on the specific field that you're going into. So it really depends on what type of business you're setting up. I know lots of entrepreneurs that work in our Accelerator Hub who've never had a university education, have set up their business from the age of 17 and have had great success. If we look at the example that I gave you from Jessica Blackler, who had set up the makeup business, she literally left school at 16, went into the makeup industry as a makeup artist, started her business, never went to university and started the business. So the answer is no, but that shouldn't be an encouragement to not go to university. What I'm simply saying is that there's no wrong path, to put it simply. Entrepreneurs come in all shapes and sizes. It might be that if you want to move into a particular area of expertise that you have to have that qualification. But again, you could argue that those qualifications can also be hired into the business, depending on which area you're moving into. So no, you don't have to have it. Is it useful? Yes, I think, in many instances, university is always very, very helpful in terms of getting you into a good practice and a good way of studying and developing. But no, it's not necessary or essential to start up a business.
Perfect, thank you.
I hope that wasn't a too controversial an answer to that statement.
No, not at all. No, not at all. So we've got no more questions coming in.
Okay.
I can't see anyone typing. So what I'd do is I suggest, just because I know we've gone over, that we leave it there. If you do have any questions at all, or if you think of something, something comes to you in like an hour or something like that, please do. This chat will be open, so please use the chat and put it in there, and I'll be able to pick up on those and email them over to Sean as well, and we can kind of answer any of those questions. And if you join in as like a lesson, if there's a group of you, we can pass those answers back on to your teacher too. So yeah, I just wanted to say firstly a massive thank you to Sean for taking time out today to come and speak to you all, tell you all about the growth mindset and becoming an entrepreneur and how that's so linked and is so important. I know I've taken away a lot from today as well. And then I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who's come along to the session as well. Your input has been brilliant, and I really hope you've taken a lot away. And again, please do feel free to put in any comments into the chat box if things pop into your head in an hour or so, or equally send us an email. We're all here and can support you. Absolutely. Okay, fantastic.
Thanks from me too, guys. Thank you very much for all your participation. I hope it's been useful.
Brilliant, thanks Sean. And just to say as well, the Workplace Opportunity Week is happening throughout the remainder of the week too, so you should have all seen the programmes, or hope you have. But if you take a look on GMAX on the events page, all the events are kind of listed up there. I will send the link to it now, so you can jump on as well. So please do come to any of the other events too. Okay, thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers, Bronwyn. I'm going to jump
Thanks, Sean.
into the meeting. If
Yeah,
you
same.
just give me a shout, and it would be great as well if we could get a copy of the recording. Is that possible?
Yeah, of course, that's no problem at all.
Bronwyn,
All right,
thanks
thank
much.
you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.